American chief, his tribe, and subsequent burial ground. In just a moment, we are going to pass the Talamato Cemetery. Again, you are encouraged to take photographs on this tour tonight. Don't be not to do so. We cannot stop. So please don't drop your phones. Museum on the right, the oldest in the United States. Coming up next, the oldest cemetery possibly in the United States, the Talamato. Now, there are several apparitions that are often seen in this cemetery. Be looking up in the trees. I'm going to tell you about a story about James. Now, in the middle, you see a bust. That's where our first bishop was laid to rest. I'm going to tell you about James in a moment. Look to your right, you'll see a very big tree here. Is where James fell to his death. Sorry to interrupt, Sheriff.
The big one.
Right here on the right, James, a young boy, he was 10 days beyond his 5th birthday. He fell from that tree. That's right here. If you look to your right, sorry, folks. You see this gravestone?
Where at? Which one?
And it's the final resting place of James P. Morgan. Here's James's story. Again, 10 days beyond his 5th birthday. James had few friends in life. It was his favorite place to play. He was often seen playing among the gravestones, peeking around behind them as if playing hide and seek, often by himself. Perhaps, perhaps not. Now you see the big tree up front. It was not a big tree then, it was a much smaller tree. It was his favorite place to play. Sadly, it is also where James fell to his death. James fell from that tree, died. His mother lived right across the street. Through her kitchen window, she saw his lifeless body laying on the ground. James had already passed from this realm to the next by the time she got to him. He was buried very near where he fell. Now, his mother lived in that house for the rest of her life, almost 30 years. To her dying day, she swore she saw her son playing in that cemetery, peeking around from behind the gravestones, even looking down at her from the trees. Many others have seen this apparition as well. You've probably heard of the show Kindred Spirits. Kindred Spirits team have spent many nights here in St. Augustine. They spent 2 nights in that old haunted cemetery. They say it is the site of their most active paranormal investigation of all times. Now, James is often seen. People have often asked, who is that boy looking among the gravestones? People are looking down from the trees. Another very common spirit seen there is the ghost bride. Now, I'm going to tell you a story about Henry Flagler next. You're probably already. If you look up here to the right in just a moment, you're going to be passing Flagler College. It used to be the Ponce de Leon Hotel. You see, Henry, as I said, came here in 1883. He did this area being the most beautiful resort area in the land. Henry was the second wealthiest man in the land. He had started Standard Oil with Company Rockefeller. He was a multimillionaire. He built the Ponce here on the right. You may have heard of his electrician, a man by the name of Thomas Edison. You might have also heard of the guy that put the stained glass windows in. Here, coming up around the road, that was a Louis Tiffany, the Tiffany Glass Company. Put those windows in. There are several spirits that still roam this Flagler College today. Modern times, it has given way to the college. 5 U.S. presidents, the Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers, they all stayed there. Babe Ruth stayed there. It was his favorite place. Now, one of the reasons that he often seen there is a woman that we believe Ida Alice. Ida, you see, was Henry Flagler's second wife, but she was also the nursemaid, the caregiver of his first wife. Did I mention that Henry was the second wealthiest man in the land? It may have had something to do with her demise, you see, because his first wife died mysteriously one night under the care of Ida Alice. Well, Ida quickly became the second Mrs. Flagler.
I need to be on your side.
board, the Ouija board. She liked alcohol. She liked opium. One night that Ouija board said to her, kill your husband. Well, kind of did what any loving wife would do. In Henry's sleep that night, she tried to kill him. She snuck to his bed with kitchen shears. She was going to stab him in the throat. Fortunately for St. Augustine, not so fortunately for her, he woke up and stopped her. He had her committed to a mental hospital. She spent the next 32 years of her life in that mental hospital. A very angry woman. That is where she died. We believe Ida still roams the halls, always up on the top floor. Female students often wake up in the middle of the night. They see a beautiful woman, a Spanish woman, looking over them, scornfully, arms crossed as if to say, you have the nerve to stay in my beloved hotel. Something else happened back when it was the Ponce de Leon. Long before air conditioning, windows were often left open. Well, one day a 12-year-old boy fell through an open window to his death. We believe the young lad still roams the fourth floor. It often happens in the middle of the night. Students will be awoken in the middle of the night with somebody running down the hallway, jiggling their door handles. They often open their doors and see nothing, but occasionally, at the end of the hallway, wearing knee-high pants from a bygone era, is a young lad laughing at them, only to run toward them and to vanish through a hall.
Government says.
Here on our left is the governor's mansion, the oldest in the country, Spanish, British, American governor government there. Really here in the United States, I can say that. Here on the left is the Plaza, the oldest common ground in the United States. Right here at the beginning of it is where a pirate was executed. His name was Andrew Ransom. The year was 1684. Pirates roamed the coast of Florida and elsewhere. Ransom was caught off what is today Milano Beach. He was executed in that town plaza. He was executed by method of garroting. Many thought were quick and painless. Garroting was a very slow, painful death. A rope is put around your neck with a baton. The baton is slowly twisted, where you die of either suffocation, blood loss, or even decapitation. But that's on the sixth turn of that twist, that rope snapped. Andrew Ransom went on to live. He was seen holding rosary beads in his hand when during that attempted execution. Priest saw that rope into inside and said, we have seen a miracle. This man shall be spared. Andrew Ransom went on to live many, many years in the sanctity of our beautiful Catholic Basilica Church. It'll be coming up on our right in a few moments. Now, Ransom wanted more from life, so he made a deal with St. Augustine. He was a master stonemason. He helped finish the construction of the beautiful fort here in town. Now, he did go on to get his freedom. He went on to marry St. Augustine. It was the governor. They did go on to have children, many descendants. There are still Ransoms living in St. Augustine to this day. Many believe that the governor's only daughter and Ransom met when he was incarcerated and fell in love. We think it was rosary beads. Now, the final light is going to be the Basilica. Also, here at that intersection is St. George Street. It is the main walking street here in St. Augustine. It has been a walking street for decades. Going up the other way. Night, December 4th of 2001, the ghost tour guide, someone similar to myself, was walking down St. George Street after midnight after her shift. Now, this road is blocked off, as you'll see here in a second. But she heard a clippity clop coming up behind her in the old dark streets, coming up the other way. It sounded like a horse-drawn carriage. She stopped and turned around. There was nothing. She continued walking down St. George Street right here. She continued hearing the clippity clopping of a horse-drawn carriage. She stopped. She turned. She saw nothing. Now she's going at a much faster pace. It's almost fun down St. George Street. She hears the clippity cloppity of a coming behind her. Really did not stop and turn around again, but she did quit that night. As a ghost tour guide, we believe she thinks, I would say, that all the cars from weeks on by were looking for one last gangster ride. But that happened on St. George Street. And now train is going to be the Ponce. Henry Flagler also built the Alcazar Hotel. We're going to pass it in a moment. Today it is the Leitner Museum. It was bought by Otto Leitner in 1944. Otto Leitner is buried in the courtyard there, here in the Leitner. It's a magnificent place. About 20 some years ago, a couple ladies were meeting in front of the Alcazar Hotel to go on a ghost tour. They were about 15 minutes late. They were once they saw a man smoking a cigar. They said, "Sir, we missed the ghost tour. It was supposed to be right there by the front gate." This man did not acknowledge it. He kept walking. He kept looking about. They asked him again, "Sir, are we late? Did we miss our ghost tour?" Again, this man did not respond to them. They just thought he was a very rude old man. They did not think much about it. The next day, however, those ladies went on a tour at the Leitner Museum. One of the first things that you will see when you go into the Leitner is a beautiful big picture of Otto Leitner. Those ladies swore that was the gentleman smoking that cigar that they saw in the courtyard here on your left, the Leitner Museum. Now, this building was remodeled in the late 19 and about just before 2000. Some construction workers were working late. It was not able for anything during that time. The foreman sent all his workers home for the night. He was finishing up. He was packing up. He began to hear orchestra music coming from the room. He thought his workers had played a practical joke on him and had circled back around and snuck back in. He went looking for the music. It always seemed to be one room ahead of him. He could not find this music. He then began to smell cigar smoke. The music kept one room ahead of him. Some building. The man got a little frightened. He left, locked up, and went home. And he never let his workers late ever again. He also never let anyone work late by themselves. Again, on your right, this is the Alcazar Hotel. It had the world's largest indoor swimming pool. In fact, you're going to get a glimpse of the outside of that little circular swimming pool here in just a moment. So coming up here on the left, you'll see one side of that pool coming up here, and then you'll see the other side of it on the other side of the street here. But this area right here is the world's largest indoor swimming pool. But Henry built this place to complement the Ponce. You see, this had a movie theater, indoor swimming, a bowling alley, a casino, massage. It had everything that the Ponce did not have. The Ponce, good evening, folks. The Ponce was magnificent, but it did not have much to do. And these wealthy guests were wanting something to do. That's why Henry built the Alcazar Hotel. Now, on our right-hand side will now be the Costa Monica Hotel. That was the third hotel in Henry Flagler's hotels. It is, of course, the only one that is still a hotel to this day. It was built by Franklin Smith. Franklin was an architect from Boston. He became good friends with Henry Flagler. However, Henry did, in my opinion, do Franklin Smith wrong. Franklin built the Costa Monica. Henry did not want this to be built because it was competition to him. But you see, Henry got the last laugh because Henry owned the railroads. All of the furniture that was coming down for the Costa Monica was on Henry Flagler's rail cars. Some reason, long before GPS and things of that nature, that furniture did not arrive for grand opening. He had enough furniture for 3 rooms to be rented. And that went on for several months before he had to file bankruptcy. Henry bought the hotel for pennies on the dollar. Of course, miraculously, a few weeks later, the furniture arrives.
What?
He was a scrupulous man, quite the businessman, but he was certainly successful at putting St. Augustine on the map. Coming up here in a moment, you're going to see a yellow building. Sadly, it just closed a few weeks ago. It was the City Gate Bed and Breakfast, also a restaurant, but it also serves Henry Flagler's stables for his wealthy friends here. Well, he always had protection there. He would have a Spanish soldier on duty, protecting the horses and things. One night, a Spanish soldier who always had a dog with him, he loved this dog, he was cleaning his musket. Somehow it misfired and exploded and killed the soldier. To this day, this was a dog-friendly bed and breakfast. It had 7 rooms, but people that would bring their dogs would always say upstairs, their dogs would not go down the hallway. They would sit, they would growl, they would have to be carried in. It's here on the right, you see the sign still says Inn and Restaurant. Unfortunately, it did close a few weeks ago, but it's magnificent. I stayed in there several times. One of the constructors in town, can you believe that Spanish soldier still protects the building to this day? Again, coming up on the right is the Casa Monica, Franklin Smith Hotel. Now, on the floor today, there is a Starbucks. Up on the very top floor above the Starbucks is the suite. That was Franklin Smith's room. He was brokenhearted when he had to sell it to Henry Flagler. He died a very somber, sad man. To this day, people from the outside still see something or someone that appears to be a sad man looking out of the window from those suites. Many years ago, some room servants, some room stewards were cleaning, going to the room to clean that room, that suite. They knocked on the door. Someone said, a gentleman said, we've been waiting for you. You're expected. Come on in. They walked in. There was no one in there, but they also smelled cigar smoke. Cigar smoke seems to be somewhat synonymous with some of the stories that follow St. Augustine. Anybody here ever heard of Amelie Street? Raise your hand if you've heard of Amelie Street. Anyway, I know these people have. Thank you. I bet they don't know the story. Amelie Street is the oldest street, not only St. Augustine, but the United States. It used to be called Hospital Street because of the location of the Spanish military hospital. It's now a museum. Anyway, in a moment, we're going to pass Amelie Street. You'll see a stone archway. Now, as I said, it's the oldest street in the United States. But what lays beneath, it's a very charming cobblestone street. But what lays just beneath the cobblestones is not nearly as charming. You see, back in 1970, a mermaid was busted here underneath the street. The street was dug up to repair it. They started finding skeletons, bones. So the city archaeologists, all called in, they discovered bones and fragments from over 200 years old. Arms, legs, and feet. You see, come to find out, the Spanish military hospital would take legs, throw them into a mass grave here on Amelie Street. Now, after all that research was done, they put the bones right back where they found them. Here is Amelie Street, right here on the right, where those folks are walking. Right beneath is where those bodies are currently buried.
Good.
People walk down the street sometimes, especially when they're by themselves. They feel a touch from an unseen hand. People report temperature change. Might be welcome this weekend. The Spanish military hospital is very cool. It's right around the corner now. Yeah. People report to work in the morning. The scaffolds that were used for the amputations are often on the floor. The band